Hello, and good morning. I'm Episcopo Squirrel, also known as Alchemage. And this morning, I'm here to talk about a natural medicine book that has impacted my life. For those of you who are not aware, the natural medicine team is putting out a competition that actually ends either today or tomorrow. If you follow me at all, I'm really good at procrastinating and getting things in at the last moment. So I will be providing a link to this contest. It's really simple. It's exactly what I just said. Share a book that is a natural medicine book that has impacted you or your life in some way. And so there's a lot of books that I have read that have been really impactful in my life. One of those books was, man, I'm really bad at recalling the names of things. It was a witchcraft book. It's a big blue book, and it's a very common book. And the author just recently died 2 or 3 years ago. An amazing author, really helped me learn the basics of witchcraft. Another really important book in my life was Teachings in Alchemy by Saint Germain. I have here, actually, I have the second book. In my library over here. I have the second book. I don't know if you can see that. Intermediate Studies in Alchemy. Alchemical Formulas for Self-Mastery, also by Saint Germain. Here you can see. And really this book and Studies in Alchemy, the first of the series, is really focused on the spiritual aspects of alchemy. And as you can see, it said formulas for self-mastery. So it's very focused on the individual and, as I said before, the spiritual works. So, you know, those books were really important to me because back in late 2011 into the early 2012, I went through a very powerful, very intense spiritual awakening. I ended up actually in a mental hospital for a couple weeks as I pieced together my reality, as I pieced together my experience. So when I finally started coming back to my senses and learning more about this stuff, I came across an alchemy book, and it was the first in that series. And a lot of the passages in there really helped me helped give me a frame of reference for some of the experiences that I was having over this several month period during this spiritual awakening. So it was really important in that aspect to help me discover what I was experiencing, what else is out there, the possibilities of existence, the possibilities of the self, of the mind, of interaction of self, mind, and environment. So that was really beautiful. But having found alchemy, I then started studying more and realized that there are ways of using alchemy to produce legitimate medicines. Things that can have a very profound effect on human physiology and human psychology. And so one of these schools of thought that I began studying, the main school of thought that I began studying, was Spagyrics. And And this book here, Spagyrics by Manfred M. Munius, it's the alchemical preparation of medicinal essences, tinctures, and elixirs. This book is amazing. It's it's beautiful. There's someone wrote a review, and in it said, while Spagyrics is, by all appearances, a modest handbook, a quote cookbook, some have even said, using a term that may seem to diminish the work, until you actually have to do the cooking, until you actually engage in the work. Only then do you come to appreciate the scope and depth of this remarkable text. This book really opened up my eyes and gave my hands a way to practice alchemical work outside of just the spiritual work. I found processes online of the Spagyric school of thought and followed those for a while until I was able to afford, because mind you, I'm a disabled veteran, and at the time I was living off of like $400 a month and living in an RV out in the middle of the desert. And so I found a lot of this work online and started practicing small batches of extracts that I could do without having a full laboratory in my RV. And really started combining the spiritual aspect and the physical experience of working on these medicines, and coming to my own understanding of how alchemy really is working. And a lot of these ideas, I was able to talk with other alchemists and read other alchemical texts, and came to find that a lot of my own personal understandings matched up with the understandings of other alchemists throughout time, both modern and ancient. So yeah, this book is just, it's incredible. It goes into so much. It talks about not only the preparation of medicines, but it talks about kind of like, well, at first it goes through a lot of what laboratory equipment is used and how it's used and what it's used for. It goes through a little bit of the history, and it shows some comparisons of modern chemistry to ancient alchemy, and shows how things that the ancient alchemists were doing what modern chemists are doing without the advanced equipment that modern chemists are using. So this book is really, if you're looking into getting into alchemical working at all to prepare medicines, then I highly suggest looking at this book. It doesn't really go into a lot of the spiritual aspect of alchemy. It's more of, it decodes some of the more cryptic language from past alchemists. And one of the things that I think about is, like, because it is a code, it's really difficult to know if this interpretation is correct. So, as with any book, you take it with a grain of salt, and learn from it and glean from it what you can, but also recognize that there could be mistakes that are posed within this tome. And so, if you are determined to get into alchemical working, another book that would go great alongside with this is Alchemical Psychology by Tom F. Cavelli. It's another book that I have here in my library. Sorry, I wasn't expecting myself to actually talk about these other books. Otherwise, I'd have had them sitting next to me while I was doing this. But this is Alchemical Psychology by Tom F. Cavelli. It's old recipes for living in a new world. And this is a really good book because it really breaks down a lot of the psychology that alchemists use and a lot of the symbols and a lot of the texts. It explains as much as one could. But again, it is a cryptic code. It is the language of the birds. And so it's not like alchemists were getting together and saying, this means this, this means this. You know, a lot of alchemists really were individual workers and had their own set of code. So it's difficult to really say that one text like this is correct on every bit of alchemy, or even correct at all. One thing to note, though, is that what is interesting within alchemy is that there's the idea that these images play within the subconscious and on the unconscious mind. And so, interestingly enough, a lot of alchemical symbols that were being used by alchemists who were absolutely not in touch actually came about, and they were using very similar symbols and terms to describe what they were talking about. Again, it is a code, so it's difficult to say that every alchemist talking about one thing is talking about the same thing. But you can use context to be able to determine that certain things are talking about the same things. That said, these two books right here are amazing natural medicine books if you want to get into the production of natural medicines yourself. So, thank you for joining me, and I hope you all have a beautiful day.